Have you ever been told your dreams are too big? That you should be realistic, play safe, and lower your expectations? Many people live their whole lives trapped in small thinking. But what happens when one person dares to believe in big possibilities? This story will show you the miracle that unfolds when courage meets faith in the unseen. David grew up in a town so small that everyone knew everyone's story. The streets were narrow, the houses simple, and dreams were never spoken too loudly. Most people were content with routine. Wake up, work at the local factory, come home, and repeat. Security was the greatest ambition. But David was different. As a child, he would spend nights gazing at the stars through his tiny bedroom window. He wondered what life looked like beyond the hills that surrounded his town. Could he travel? Could he build something great? Could he live a life bigger than what he saw every day? Whenever he voiced his questions, people laughed. "David, don't be silly. You're just like us. Be realistic. Get a safe job, save a little money, and don't expect too much from life." At first, he resisted those voices. But as the years passed, their words grew louder than his own. Doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if dreaming big only led to disappointment? David began to shrink his vision. Instead of aiming high, he convinced himself that survival was enough. But deep inside, something felt missing, like a fire that refused to die even when covered in ashes. One day, while browsing an old bookstore, he stumbled upon a dusty book. Inside, a sentence struck him like lightning. "Small thinking creates small lives. Big thinking creates miracles." He froze, reading it again and again. It was simple, yet it shattered years of fear in an instant. For the first time, he realized that maybe the limits he felt were not real. They were borrowed from the people around him. That night, lying in bed, he whispered to himself, "What if I dared to believe in something bigger?" And with that single thought, a new chapter of his life quietly began. The morning after reading that life-changing sentence, David felt different. The small town that once looked familiar now seemed like a cage. He realized that if he stayed, his dreams would wither before they ever had a chance to grow. So, with nothing but a worn-out backpack, a few dollars in his pocket, and an unshakable spark of courage, he boarded a bus to the city. As the fields and hills disappeared behind him, fear began to whisper. What if you fail? What if you run out of money? What if you're not good enough? But David clenched his fists and repeated quietly, "Small thinking won't save me. I must believe in big possibilities." The city was overwhelming. Tall buildings, rushing crowds, endless noise. David felt invisible, like a single drop in an ocean. Yet deep inside, he knew he didn't come this far just to blend in. Instead of applying for any job he could find, he aimed higher. He walked into offices that looked far too polished for someone like him. He volunteered at events where he had no clear role, just to learn and connect. He attended seminars, even when the ticket cost almost everything he had. Many times, doors slammed in his face. People dismissed him, telling him to lower his expectations. But every rejection carried a lesson. Every no sharpened his resolve. Slowly, the city began to notice his persistence, his willingness to try, to learn, and to dream bigger than his circumstances. It wasn't success yet, but it was the beginning. David had taken his first leap of faith, and though fear still followed him, belief was starting to walk beside him too. Life in the city was far from easy. For David, Each day felt like a test of his courage. There were nights when his pockets were empty, and dinner meant nothing more than stale bread. There were mornings when he woke up on a thin mattress in a cramped room, questioning if leaving his small town had been a mistake. Rejection became a constant companion. Companies turned him away. Strangers ignored him. His phone was filled with unanswered applications and polite rejections. Each no felt like a weight pressing down on his chest. Sometimes he sat alone in the park, watching others rush by with purpose. Doubt whispered louder than ever. Maybe they were right. Maybe big dreams are foolish. Maybe you don't belong here. But just when the darkness seemed overwhelming, small sparks of hope appeared. One evening, while volunteering at a seminar, an older businessman noticed David's eagerness. Instead of dismissing him, the man offered advice, guidance David had never received before. Another time, a stranger paid for his meal after noticing his tired face, telling him, "Don't give up, better days are coming." They were small gestures, but to David, they felt like lifelines. It was as if the universe itself refused to let him quit. Every setback taught him resilience. Every moment of kindness reminded him why he had left his comfort zone. Deep down, he realized the struggle wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. His doubts were real, but so was the quiet voice inside him that kept saying, "Believe. Keep going. Your miracle is closer than you think." And so, despite the storms, David decided to rise each morning with a fragile but unbroken hope. After months of struggle, an unexpected opportunity came knocking. A local organization was holding a competition for young innovators, anyone with an idea that could create a positive impact on society. The prize wasn't just money, but mentorship and exposure to leaders who could open doors. When David first heard about it, fear rose immediately. "You're not ready. You have no degree, no experience. Who would take you seriously?" Doubt tried to chain him again. But then he remembered that sentence from the old book, "Big thinking creates miracles." He realized this was his chance to prove it. For days, he poured his heart into preparing his presentation. He sketched plans, practiced late into the night, and whispered prayers that his effort would matter. Yet on the morning of the event, his hands still trembled. Standing on the stage, looking at the faces of business leaders and experts, David felt the same fear he had carried since leaving his hometown. But instead of running, he took a deep breath and spoke from his heart. He shared his idea, not with perfect words, but with passion, honesty, and belief. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, applause filled the hall. Judges leaned forward, impressed not just by the idea, but by the fire in his voice. That day, David didn't just win recognition, he won back his faith. For the first time, he saw that daring to believe in big possibilities could truly open doors no one thought possible. Winning the competition was only the beginning. With new mentors guiding him and doors opening, David's project slowly came to life. What started as a simple idea sketched on crumpled paper began to grow into something real, something that touched people's lives. At first it was small, a pilot program in one neighborhood, but the results were undeniable. Families benefited, children found opportunities, and hope started to spread. Soon, more communities wanted to be part of it. David was stunned. Just months earlier, he had been sleeping on a thin mattress, wondering if he should give up. Now people looked to him for leadership. Reporters interviewed him, organizations reached out, and the same city that once ignored him began to celebrate him. But deep down, David knew the true miracle wasn't the recognition or the success. It was the transformation inside him. He had learned that believing in big possibilities didn't just change his circumstances, it changed him. The boy who once doubted himself was now a man who inspired others to dream bigger. The whispers of fear were still there, but they no longer controlled him. Instead, his heart carried a stronger voice. You can. You must. Believe. And as he stood before a crowd one evening, sharing his story, he saw hope reflected in their eyes. That was when he realized the real miracle wasn't just his journey. The miracle was that his belief had sparked belief in others too. David's story is not just about one man chasing a dream. It is about every one of us who has ever felt the weight of doubt, the sting of rejection, or the fear of thinking too big. The truth is, life often tries to shrink us. People around us may say, "Be realistic, don't expect too much, stay safe." And if we listen too long, we begin to believe it. Our world becomes small, not because it has to be, but because we've allowed our thinking to be small. David's journey reminds us of a powerful truth. Miracles happen when we dare to believe in bigger possibilities. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because believing bigger changes us. It makes us more courageous, more creative, and more resilient. It allows us to see doors where others only see walls. Yes, there will be struggles. Yes, fear will still whisper. But when you choose to lift your thoughts higher, you invite opportunities, people, and even miracles into your life. Tonight, ask yourself, am I living small because of fear, or am I willing to dream bigger than my circumstances? Remember, David was once an ordinary young man in a small town, told to keep his head down. But one thought changed his destiny. One belief created a miracle. And the same could be true for you. Because when you believe in big possibilities, you don't just change your own life, you light a path for others to believe too.